Look at them straight in the eye and say, that's what's going to come for you if you're not careful. That's what's going to come for you if you don't get your walk right. That's what's going to come to you if you don't put your faith in God. And I think it's so important for us to have those real conversations with our kids. It's so important to be able to have that. What's up, everybody? What is going on? Cesar Hernandez, aka Coach C, and welcome to the Values Nation podcast, episode number 2. Very excited about today's podcast and very excited about today's episode because I have a special guest on. And this is a good friend of mine that I have been in his life for probably the last 5 years or so. We talked about it a little bit in the first episode. I came into his life with that intent, and we ended up developing a relationship, a friendship that has just been phenomenal, a friendship that has just been really awesome. And I've been able to see Lucky go through these phases of changing his life. And we're going to get into that. So let me introduce to you Lucky Luciano from Houston, Houston-based rapper. Lucky, what's up?
Hey, what's up? What's up? See, how you doing?
What's going on, man? How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Blessed. I'm blessed. Big
Blessed.
blessed.
You big blessed.
Big blessed. Buddy.
You're not just blessed, you big blessed. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
man. Well, I appreciate you coming on today, man. I think that this conversation is probably long overdue. We've had so many conversations before this, and we've talked about so many things in regards to change and shifting one's mindset and all this sort of stuff. But before we get into that, because it's super important for people to understand kind of the context and the background of where you come from, man, and what you were raised in. And so the first question that I really have for you is if you can kind of just give us a little bit of your upbringing. What was the environment like? What were you raised like? What were your parents like? And tell me just a little bit about that so we can kind of build this foundation for people that are watching this podcast.
Well, my I had both of my parents in the house. They loved me, but they were very young when they had me. They were 16 and 17 years old, and it's not like I got left at my grandparents' house or something. It was I they were taking care of me. The only thing is they were kids themselves, so they really didn't,
Right.
they were freestyling. They didn't really know what they were doing. They loved me. Their heart was in the right place. They just had me around where they grew up in, and it was basically in the hood. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
raised. It was in the '80s, during the '80s when there was a lot of drugs going around, and just what goes on in the neighborhood, drugs, violence, uncles going to prison, and me just seeing a lot of drug dealing, drug trafficking. You know what I'm saying? So I grew up around all that. And then when I got older into 12, 13 years old, that's when I started like going in the stash spots and picking it up and trying to experiment with it. And that's basically how I got involved with the drugs, and selling drugs and doing drugs
Mm,
and all that. And I wasn't really into sports as a kid. I was always into music.
hmm
I was just always into in the late, when I was about 10 years old. I was in the late '80s, early '90s. DJing, the scratching turntables was real big. Rap was real, starting to go mainstream. You know what I'm saying? So
hmm
that was really, I was into that. Like I thought I wanted to be a DJ. I thought I wanted to get some turntables and scratch up some records. That's what I thought I wanted to do when I
Yeah.
when I when they would ask me what I want to be when I grow up, I always said I want to be, a rapper or a DJ or something in the music. I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Mm,
And so that's pretty much what I did when I turned, from 16. I started rapping at school and rapping in the neighborhood. And then I got introduced to a pretty famous rapper here in Texas when I was 18 years old. And that's how I got my start in the music business. They had a record deal with Universal Records, and I was on a nationwide album. And from there, I took off really and started, doing my own thing after that.
right. Let me ask you this, kind of backing up and going into when you were being raised up, right? At certain points of your life, did you ever look around and say, I don't know if this is normal, or did it feel like just a normal thing?
it felt like I was normal. So I went to school with other kids, and I realized, when I would go to my friend's house and stuff, and I would say like, "Oh, they parent, this ain't normal. My house is different."
Yeah,
That's what I knew I was at first. All I seen was like my little cousins. We all running around we're all growing up in that environment together. So we
yeah,
don't know. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
We think that's normal. But when you start going to school and start seeing other people how they live, or when you start watching TV, I think that was pretty much it. When you start watching TV and seeing like sitcoms back in the day of other families, or what America's family structure looks like, and
mm.
that's when you notice that, oh, we're a little different.
Yeah, we're a little different than everybody else. I was talking about in the last episode, I was talking about that I had a certain point where I started going to school and I started realizing when I was looking around that some of the other kids were dressed just a little bit better. I started realizing that when I went to their houses, they had like actual furniture in their house and like nice furniture and, family photos and stuff around the house. And I didn't really have any of that stuff, and my shoes were kinda torn, and my clothes were hand-me-downs, and all this sort of stuff that I was recognizing, very early on. I'm like, "There's something different about my family and my friend's family," right?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a difference here, and it was a little bit discouraging knowing that there were people that were just right up the street that were living a little different than us. However, when I started to kind of go down that rabbit hole and started trying to figure out like, hey, who do I want to be? I started to really I guess rebel and just, try to play the game of comparison, say, well, I'm gonna be better. Right. Like, I'm gonna be better than that. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna go and be something better. And that kind of just motivated me in a different way. Not in the way where I was saying I'm gonna be better than just the people, but I'm gonna be better than all of this. I want more from my life, right? I want to be able to cultivate more in my life. I want to have more. So when we're thinking about like your motivations going into the rap game, did you think that you were going to just like become a rapper and then just go and just like live a completely different life? Was that the motivation to try to get out of the hood? What was the motivation behind it?
I was sort of, I remember I was still a kid myself, so I wasn't mature enough to see it like that. I was thinking that, I was going to basically follow in that same footsteps. So you got to remember, it wasn't like I was in a poor house,
Mm.
because my dad would carry a wad of money and, have the Cadillac and dress up, have jewelry on. So I was fascinated with that lifestyle,
Yeah.
that baller life. You know what I mean? So I wanted to carry on in his footsteps, but it wasn't sort of the dealing drugs that I thought was going to get me there. It was the rapping, but I still
Mm.
want that same lifestyle, that going to the fancy dinners and having all those friends and paying for everything. And, I still wanted to live that same lifestyle, but through the rapping and music. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Yeah. One of the lines that I love that you say and that I've heard you say so many times is from the dope house to the hope house, right?
Yeah.
Like that's been one of the taglines that you've come up with. And from the dope house or excuse me, from the dope house to the hope house, what there was a transition there. But when I met you just a handful of years ago, you were still kind of in the dope house, right? You were kind of still doing secular music, right? And we're gonna get into that in a second, how you do only Christian music now. But when you were doing the secular music and you were doing that, what was the the intent for it? Was it just to put out a message? Was it you were just trying to make money? You were just trying to keep the streams coming in? Like what was the actual intent when you were making the music that was more secular?
Yeah, well, I was doing it for a long time. So there's a 20-year span. So it changed. You know what I'm saying? At the beginning, it was for the love of the music. Remember,
Yeah.
the kid, I had a love for music and I liked to make music. But from the very beginning, it was that. And then once I started getting a taste of the notoriety around the city, and the girls and the money and the party, then it turned into that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like, oh, I think I like this. I like this lifestyle that I'm getting to live. So it was like, oh, I'm gonna keep rapping to keep up with this lifestyle that I'm able to live.
right.
And then it turned, oh, now I gotta pay my bills. So I gotta do this to be able to pay my bills now. You know what I'm saying? So it was a transition. It didn't stay the same the whole time.
Yeah.
during that time when I was living that fast life, I didn't realize that I was developing a drug and alcohol addiction. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
that during and nobody really knows they have a problem with that until they try to quit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when I started having kids and I was like, oh, I need to straighten up because by this time I'm already like, 30 years old. And I realized what happened to my life by me growing up in that environment. So now
Mm.
I'm like, oh, okay. See, my parents didn't know better. They were teenagers.
Yeah.
I'm 30 years old. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a teenager.
Right.
So when I'm with my little kids, I'm like, hey, I got to straighten up because I saw what it did to me and how I, started experimenting with drugs at a young age. I don't want my kids growing through that or going through that. So I need to make a change and change my life and stop doing these drugs and stop having them around this environment. And so when I tried to quit on my own, that's when I realized, oh man, I got an addiction because I
Mm.
can't quit on my own.
Yeah.
What I'm
Yeah.
that's when I started searching, started soul searching and like, okay, I had to, have a strong conversation with myself, look in the mirror. I tried programs, going to AA or different things, trying to get off the alcohol and drugs. And it wasn't until I, reached out to God and started praying to God and asking God for help because, I was like, God, my heart, I'm trying to change for my kids, but you see that I can't do it on my own. I need your help. Can you, if you're real, can you
Mm.
come into my life and change my life?
Yeah. And I want to pause right there because that kind of interjects the timeline in which I came into your life as well, right? Because the thing I want to say this, the very thing that attracted me and put Lucky on my radar was that I was heavy into personal development. I was heavy into making sure that you're reading and that you're doing these things to open your mind, to expand, just growth. I was into growth. So I listened to a lot of Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and all these sort of excuse me, all these sort of characters. And at a certain point, for some reason, Lucky was doing motivational videos, kind of just like in his way, right?
Mm.
And because I was into all of that, the algorithm kind of fed me his videos, and Lucky kind of came across my screen, and he was already doing motivational stuff. And so then I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, look, I want to do a little something with you. Like I feel like there's something here. It just needs to be refined. I think that there's something here we just needed to just give it just a little bit more umph." And so that's where I kind of came into your life. And maybe you can explain a little bit of that. But I remember when I met you, Luck, and you were at a point in your life where you were really ready to make that change. Like you had
Mm.
already made some changes. You had already stopped kind of going to the clubs and stopped doing this stuff. And you were taking care of your family. You were doing a vlog called Luciano TV.
Right.
And Kelly had, Kelly, who is your wife, she convinced you to do this show, and you were kind of like, all right, maybe I'll get some features from this thing, right?
Yeah.
And then it kind of started turning into more of a motivational thing for people that were encouraging because you started to see people were actually responding to what it is that you were doing. Right. So break that down for me a little bit. Like when I came into your life, where were you at? What was going on? And how did that transition kind of happen when our worlds kind of collided?
Yeah, so I'm thankful for our YouTube channel and our YouTube subscribers because they were kind of like my accountability. You got to have some accountability, and when you put it out there, like, "Yo, I'm gonna make this change, and I'm gonna start, on this personal development journey, and I'm gonna record it," then the people are waiting for you to fall off. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, any minute now he gonna go back. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I had to keep it up because I was like, okay, they're watching me now. But a lot of my fans, they grew up with me. So they started listening to me when they were teenagers, like when I started when I was a teenager. So now I'm in my 30s, they're in their 30s. So and they have families now, they have kids now, they got jobs now, but they're still fans to my
Mm,
music. So they hear the growth in my music now as I matured, and they wanted to make a change too. So I think that when I started seeing the response from people like, "Hey, you're inspiring me to get off the drugs. You're inspiring me to take care of my
yeah.
kids. You're inspiring me to be a better father, a better man." So that's what I was like. Okay, this is bigger than just me. I can not only change my life, but I can hopefully change other people's lives too in
Yeah.
the process.
I love it. I love it. And we started to see that real quick, especially when you and I started working together. When I got a chance to really kind of see behind the scenes, So as a marketing strategist, you get access to all the social media accounts and all that sort of stuff, and there were countless messages coming through. And I'm talking about men from all over the world, all over the place, thanking Lucky for what he was doing and reaching out and pouring out their entire life story. I mean, it's so many messages, you just can't get to them. There's just no way you can answer all these messages. So if you've ever sent a message to Lucky and, you feel like you weren't heard, it was probably read. But the thing is that there's so many of those things coming in, it's impossible to keep up with. And when I seen that, I knew that there was something extremely special there. And now, during that time, there was a time period where we started to kind of transition you from going from being just a secular rapper to now like this motivational guy. And then we were kind of toying with the idea of doing kind of a Christian album because at that point you had met your pastor, Pastor Juan. Shout out to Pastor Juan. You had met Pastor Juan, and you started to kind of contemplate, should I go into this world, right? And so
Right.
tell me what the internal struggle was in going from secular to actually doing a Christian album.
Yeah. So when I, got on my knees and prayed to God, told God, come into my life, take this addiction away from me. Um, I was by myself. I didn't have any Christian brothers or anything like that yet. I didn't have a pastor. I was basically on my own. But what God, I felt that in my heart, what I was supposed to do was go out. This was early in the morning when I said this prayer. God told me to go outside and just start running. So I went outside in the morning and started running. And I would do that every morning. I would go pray and I'd go outside and run. And then I would make little videos of showing people what I was doing on Instagram, like, yo, it's a new year, we're trying to change our life for the better. Go outside, go, get your heartbeat pumping, start it's a new day, be thankful and showing gratitude. Well, Pastor Juan saw one of those videos, you know what I'm saying? Just
Mhm.
like you saw one of my videos, the pastor saw one of my videos. So he reached out to me, and when he started reaching out to me, he was basically, just saying, "Hey, I feel like God has put you on my heart for me to help you on, your walk, or to help you get closer with God, or show you, different how to read the Bible, different stories in the Bible, because I hadn't picked up the Bible yet at this point." And that's where it started. So I started going to his church and everything. And then one day we're at his office, and because he would call me to his office, and I didn't live far from him or live far from his church. It was kind of, we're all like in the same area.
Yeah.
So he basically was saying, "Hey, what's stopping you from saying that you're a Christian, or going all in to becoming a, born again Christian?" And I thought about it and I was like, well, I ain't doing drugs no more. I'm not cheating on my wife. I ain't drinking. And I started thinking, like, what is it stopping me? And then I was like, well, the only thing I'm still doing is the music. I was
Right.
still, even though the music, I wasn't talking about gang banging and shooting people up and stuff. It was still kind of like, cussing in my music,
Yeah.
and just, it wasn't all positive.
Mhm.
Uh, so I was like, I think it's the music. And I was, at this point, it wasn't like I was rushing to the studio to put out a new album. It was just I would get called from up and coming rappers to feature on theirs because I had
Right.
a big platform. So a lot of up and coming rappers in Texas would call me and pay me to feature on their album or feature on their single. And that's how I would make my money. So when he told me, when you let go of that and stop doing that, that's when God's going to really move in your life.
Mm.
So that was the beginning. When the next time a rapper called me and asked me to feature on this thing, I was like, hey, I'm not doing music like that. I gave my life to God. I'm a Christian now, and I'm not doing no more features like that. And the crazy thing is that was my walk. I mean, I'm stepping out in faith and showing God that I had faith. Like, there has to be a sign of your faith. Like in the Bible, it says that yes, there it's, all you got to do is have faith in God, but there has to be some kind of sign of you showing that you
Mm.
have faith.
Mhm.
And that was me showing God that, look, I have faith in you. I don't know how I'm gonna pay my bills now because I'm turning down money, but I'm trusting in you that you're gonna make a way. And after that, he did. And I first I thought it was gonna be by me just becoming a straight up Christian rap artist, because I started meeting other Christian rappers now. Kingdom Music, Brian Trejo, and a lot of other rappers, Young Bro, and from Pastor Juan. Pastor Juan introduced us.
Right.
So I thought I was gonna go that route. I thought that, okay, maybe this is what it is. I'm gonna start doing Christian music, and that's how I'm gonna pay my bills. Which I did put out a couple Christian albums, and they did well. They did a lot better than I thought they were gonna do. But at that same time, that's when a friend of mine introduced me to the insurance business, and I feel like that's where God had for me, and I didn't even realize it because it all happened at the same time.
Right.
And I ended up getting my insurance license and my investment license, which is called a securities license. And me and my wife basically built our own agency now. So that's what we're doing now.
Man, I love it. I love it. And when I think about the transition that you made and the transformation that you made, if you would have told me 2, 3 years ago that Lucky was gonna be sitting in an office selling insurance policies and all this sort of thing, I would have told you you're crazy. I would have
Me
told you
too. Me too.
Yeah,
That's why I say God has a sense of humor because, and it for me, it makes it's like I really feel like it's like God having a sense of humor because if you think about it, it's life insurance, and I feel like I got a second chance at life. It
mm,
was like a new life that God has given me, born again, new life,
yeah,
second shot at life to being successful without having to be in the streets, without having to be in those nightclubs. And it's life insurance that I'm helping people with and investments in their, retirement accounts.
right, right. So let me ask you this because I know that we're a little short on time today, but what I wanna ask you is now when you look back in retrospect and you look back into your journey and you say, "Okay, I came from the streets. I came from running in the streets, even though I had a two-parent home. My parents were doing the best that they could. I got caught up in a lot of the things that I got caught up in. When you look at that, do you feel like there is something there that is a reoccurring theme in our neighborhoods in our culture? There's something that maybe there I like to call them a set of lies that we've bought into. I like to call them like these are the set of lies that we have bought into. Do you feel the same? Do you feel like
Yeah, in the Bible, it's called generational curses. They can say, "Hey, alcoholism ran in my family." Well, it
mm,
did run in my family until it ran into me. And I
right,
feel like if you don't stop it, then it's gonna continue to go into your kids. It's gonna, pass down to your kids. And if they don't stop it, it's gonna pass down to their kids.
mm,
So there has to be somebody in the bloodline that stops that addiction, whether it's alcoholism, drug abuse, infidelity or cheating on the wife, cheating on the spouse, whatever it is, molestation, all that goes into families that happens reoccurring from generations to generations.
right,
If it doesn't stop with somebody, it's going to continue to happen. And I feel like
absolutely,
I was smart enough to be like, okay, that's got to stop me. And it's because I had so many kids. I got 7 kids,
yeah.
so I had to make a change for them and be able. I didn't want them to grow up the way I grew up.
Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do, and I know that the generational curse thing and being able to break that. I mean, I talk about that all the time. One of the things I tell my sons is like, I want you to look at my situation and I want you to look at dad and I want you to see exactly what he went through. And then I want you to look at my father and I want you to look at his father. And I want you to see, do you see any reoccurring themes? Do you see any cycles that are happening there? And they're able to identify, oh yeah, dad, there's this, there's this, there's this. And I tell them, look at them straight in the eye, say, "That's what's gonna come for you if you're not careful. That's what's gonna come for you if you don't get your walk right. That's what's gonna come to you if you don't put your faith in God." And I think it's so important for us to have those real conversations with our kids. It's so important to be able to have that. I love that when you started making your albums that were Christian based and that on the other side of the fence, away from the secular, it was almost like you were exposing the lies. Like
Yeah,
the way that you started to speak and the way that you started to get more bold, you were exposing the things that we just thought were normal. We just thought were just regular, everyday, like this is how it is. And
right.
what we realize is, no, these are the lies that we bought into. These are the lies that we've sold ourselves. These are the things that we told ourselves to justify our actions and to keep ourselves where we're at. And so I just want to commend you, man, because I know that it's not easy to make that change. And I was there during that time when you made that change, and it was tough. I
Yeah,
know because we were talking about like how is Lucky gonna pay his bills, like you said, because this is his stream of revenue here. This is his money coming in, and how do we like make this change without throwing all that away? Because like you said, you got 7 kids, you got a wife, you got a house that you have to hold up, and
yeah,
thank God that he was able to. God had a plan for you. He put you into that. He put you into that plan because of your faith and because of the actions that you started to take, and then now you're in this position where you're selling, insurance and licensed broker, right? Do I have that right? Am I saying it right?
licensed broker, yeah.
Right? You're a
So,
licensed
and
broker.
I got about 65 licensed agents on my team. So
Wow.
it's not just, selling insurance. I'm able to license people. And like I said, we have our own agency. Right now, I'm in my office. I got about 4 of my agents in the other office right now. We have a client in there they're talking to right now. It's 9:30 in the morning. You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? We're already at work right now. You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? So yeah, this is going, and I would have never thought this in a million years. I would have been doing this.
Right. Look, I wanna thank you for coming on, and if I can, just get you to maybe give some words of encouragement. We're gonna continue on in this episode. We gotta let Lucky go so he can get back to work, but if you can just give some encouragement to some of the people that are watching this, and this could be someone who's our age, somebody who's younger, who is maybe watching this and saying, I know who Lucky is, and I've listened to his music or whatnot. Maybe you can give them some encouragement, and just some words that will allow them to understand that the transformation is possible. That you don't have to be the place that you come from, right? And you can be somebody completely different. So just go ahead and give them some words of encouragement. We'll go ahead and wrap it up with you, and then we'll continue the episode.
Yeah, for the men of the house, it's very important that you get right with God because the enemy is coming for you because you're the man of the house. If the enemy can have the man, he got the whole family, he got the whole
Mm,
household. So it's very important for the man to get right with God first, and and don't force it on your wife. Just don't force it on your family. You get right with God and show that. Let them see the reflection of Christ through you. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get your heart and your mind right first. If you don't want your kids going through the same thing. Now, I'm not saying your kids aren't going to have their own giants to face in life. My kids are still going to have their own problems and issues to face, but I know it's not going to be the same struggles that generations have been going through because I was able to make that change. And then for the young guys, hey man, don't let these rappers and people you see on social media fool you. You know what I'm saying? What they're showing you right there is not what it looks like behind the scenes. And when the party's over and everybody goes home and they're in that house by themselves or that hotel room by themselves, they feel empty inside. That's why they're doing the drugs. That's why they're overdosing. That's why these rappers are going to prison because they're not happy. You know what I'm saying? If they were happy, they would be away from the streets instead of staying in that street mentality. You know what I'm saying? You could still live like a baller legally. Look at me, man. I'm still ice. You know what I'm saying? Still icy. You know what I'm talking about? So you could do it. You could do it and get some legal money. You don't got to be doing that illegal lifestyle. There's so many
mm.
ways to make money online now, and with technology these days, there's so many ways to make money straight from home with a laptop. So come on, man. We gotta get it. It's 2024. Let's go.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Lucky. I appreciate your time, brother. So much, man. So much respect and love for everything that you're doing now. And I'm just super proud of you, man. Just want to let you know. I know I tell you all the time, man, but I want to tell you again how proud I am of you and to see the transformation that has happened over the last few years. You just keep pushing, keep going on because Lucky's hitting motivational stages now. Now he's getting out there and like talking to the masses, man. I
Hey,
love it.
man, I wanna thank you too because I know there was times where we struggled and because didn't want to listen and you were trying to look out and show me the way to go and you were just doing what God told you to do by saying because I know there was times where you're like, why am I wasting my time with this guy? He don't listen, and you're like, and God was like, no, I need you in His life for a reason, and that reason is bigger than me and you. It's
Right.
for the people that are seeing this change and that you know what I'm saying. So thank you for that, for being obedient.
Absolutely.
To God.
I appreciate you, man. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Luck. Appreciate you, man.
Already.
See you soon. Well, I want to say thank you to Lucky for coming on. I'm extremely grateful for him to be able to come and share his time with us. And I want to kind of go over a few things that we were talking about, especially there at the end when he was talking about to the young, impressionable men and saying that not to get fooled by what you're seeing on your screens, your whether it's your TV screen, your phone screen, from these rappers and from these people, because it's not real life. And I think it's such an important thing to emphasize that culture has such a grip on the way that we think. It has such a grip on the way that we move, even if we're not realizing it. This is why it's so important to guard your ears, to guard your eyes, to guard your heart, because if you don't guard it, those ideas, even if you think in your mind, well, I know this isn't real. I know that they're not really living this rap style. It's just fun. It's just cool. It's just whatever. Inadvertently, what you're doing is you're programming yourself to then go and have the same mentality, to be able to go and act out in similar fashions, to take on ideas that aren't really your ideas, to take on, um, a culture of what the music game is putting into your ear. You have to be careful about that. And I want to say this to parents. This is a big one, right? This is like a big issue in a lot of homes. You have to be willing to look at yourself and say, well, I come from whether it's the 80s or the 90s era where music was great. And yes, I know that music today is absolute trash. But even then, when you start to play back these songs and you start to really listen to what is being said, I don't think that it's an appropriate thing for you to go and to play in front of your kids who are young, who have young, impressionable minds. I gotta say this, like, as parents, you have a certain responsibility to put yourself aside and to sacrifice certain things for your children. And if you are willing to do that, you will see the fruits of your labor. What do I mean by that? That means if you like to listen to Tupac and Bone Thugs and Harmony and all of these artists, and I named these two artists not out of judgment because those were my artists. Those were the ones that I, to this day, if I hear a Bone Thugs and Harmony song, if I hear a Tupac song, like it just does something to me. Like it just takes me back, and I like it, but I'm also very careful not to play that around my kids. And I was very intent on making sure that I didn't do that because I understood programming. Now, I'm going to tell you something. 99.9% of the time, I don't listen to it anymore. I just don't. There's a small percentage of time, maybe when I'm in the gym, when it's just me and my headphones and I'm trying to like lift a little heavy, I might slip up. This is like my guilty pleasure. I might slip up and go listen to one. And then I quickly realize I'm like, I'm grown now. It doesn't feel the same. I don't buy these ideas anymore. I don't I don't fall for the lie anymore. What I'm going to encourage you as a parent is that at a certain time to draw the line in the sand and to say that I refuse to allow my family to take part in this programming. I refuse to allow my family to take part in this culture anymore. You know, one of the biggest lessons that you could take away from Lucky is that at a certain point he realized that for the sake of his 7 kids, he had to change. For the sake of him raising those kids and showing them a great example, he had to do what he had to do and get away from the very thing that even brought him money, the thing that paid his bills. He was willing to walk away from. What are you willing to walk away from? What are you willing to walk away from that may be painful, but it's for the betterment of your children. It's for the betterment of your family. It's for the betterment of your marriage. What are some of the things that you can do today that aren't anywhere near what you would have done in your 20s, anywhere near what you would have done in your teens? That is a sign of true growth. That is the sign of a person who is maturing, and it's like, if we understand that piece of it, if we understand that, man, there are so many things that I used to do that are no longer acceptable because of my responsibilities today, because I have children, because I have a marriage that I have to cultivate, and I can't be listening to a bunch of songs that make me feel like I want to go out and party, or to go out and just have multiple women on me, and all this sort of stuff, to have inappropriate conversations, to be messaging somebody on the side. You know, when you talk about culture and they talk about these things like they're normal side pieces, and just going out and sipping on some syrup and doing all these sort of things in the Houston culture. But what I'm saying is that you have to realize that these things are no longer going to serve you. So what are you doing as a parent to guard yourself first? The next point that Lucky brought up was that as the man of the house, you are going to be the one that the enemy is going to come after. You are going to be the one, because if he can destroy you, he can destroy your entire family. When we talk about generational curses, when we talk about leading the household, you have to be willing to stop in its tracks the very thing that will destroy you, whether that is music, unhealthy habits, pornography, whatever the case is, whatever it is, you have to be willing to stop it and to say, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I can't think so selfish that I just want to indulge in the pleasures that I used to indulge in long time ago. I talk to a lot of parents, and it's always hard for them to swallow some of these concepts. It really is. And I just recently went on a trip with my boy to San Antonio, and I started talking to one of the parents, and we were talking about how you know when we were coming up and we were teenagers, how wild we were, how crazy we acted, and we started to really even say like, man, I would never wish that on my child. I would never wish that on my child. Like, dude, I would flip if my son did some of the things that I did. I would just lose it. What are we doing to protect our kids from having to make those choices? What are we doing to protect our children from not having the same ideas as we did? Are we walking differently? Are we talking differently? Are we listening to different music? Are we listening to better quality stuff to feed our minds? Because as the head of the house, more specifically, I'm talking to men right now, as the head of the house, you have to guard your mind. You have to be willing to be the one that makes the ultimate sacrifice and not do things that you like anymore. That's the truth. And here's the thing, just like anything, when you're making changes, when you're making a change in your diet, when you're going from junk food to eating whole foods and eating good foods, it's not pleasurable at first. And you even think like, man, this food tastes so bland. This food, it doesn't have the same flavor as I would have had if I was eating the way I regularly eat. That's because you're so used to all of the fillers and all the salt and all of the different things that they add into the actual foods, right? You're so used to it. And so that transition is always hard. But when you have a clean palate for a while and you try to go back and you eat that nasty food again, you realize, wait a minute, this stuff is disgusting. This stuff is gross. I don't even understand how people actually eat this stuff. That's what happens after a while. And so the same goes for your mind. At first, it is a hard uphill battle to let go of things that you used to do, to let go of the things that are destructive, to let go of the music, to let go of the attitude, to let go of the poor little me, to let go of what you were raised in, to let go of the way that you dress. That's a big one. To let go of the way that your culture has cultivated the way that you think that you should dress, or the way that you produce, what the product that you put in front of the world is. Because the first thing that comes to mind from that is, what are people going to think? They're just going to think that I think I'm too good, or I'm too this, I'm too that. And that's what people from the hood do. That's what they say. So it's going to be a painful transition. But what you have to understand is you have to understand that that transition is absolutely necessary for the change in the generations to come. Because if you make that change, they will begin to pick that up, and it will become the new normal. It will become the thing that they know. And then they can improve upon that with their children. And the generations after you will continue to improve, but it starts with you. And you may not be alive to fully even see it happen. That's dedication. That's dedication. You may pass away before you see the next 3 generations make a change, the next 2 generations for sure. Like, you might see the next generation and you might see the one after that. But after that, I mean, you're not going to see too much. You're going to be old and gone. And so, what I want you to understand is that this is such an important thing. And I want to thank Lucky for coming on today because it's to see the change that has happened in this man's life, to see him go from being the Houston based rapper to being somebody who is now selling financial services and helping people. And he has all those people. I think he had 60 something um, agents under him now, and that he's helping to create wealth for, that he's helping to change families. I mean, this is what he does all day long now. Like it's very hard to get a meeting with him nowadays because he's just so slammed with work and what he's doing, and he's enjoying every single minute of it. So thank you, Lucky. I appreciate you. I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. Do me a favor. If you like today's episode, go ahead and drop a comment below. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was. Give us a like and subscribe and all the good YouTube stuff. And also, what I do want to say is this, is that if you have the opportunity to share this with somebody who needs to hear it, please share this video with somebody. Share this video with somebody who needs to hear it, and maybe they come from a similar background. Maybe they're just having a hard time right now. They need a little bit of encouragement. Share this video with them. I'm sure that they'll appreciate you in the long term for it, and we'll see you next time.